The ideology of what it means to be human is a jagged slope with infinite variations in an explanation, all changing depending upon who one asks. So, what does it mean to be human? A question that is so simple yet so deep, an ongoing question in political, cultural, and civil discourse throughout the world. In the most basic sense, to be human, one must have human DNA with the ability to reproduce with other humans. Another element is that humans have the capability to change themselves and their own tendencies. Finally, humans possess advanced cognitive abilities and functions such as perception, which affects and is affected by philosophy. The essence of being human lies in the intricate interplay between genetic composition, the innate ability to change, and the philosophical realm of perception. Genetic composition. As most people would know, DNA is the code or blueprint for everything. One cannot change their DNA. It is a part of them for the rest of their lives. Organismal characteristics are determined through the activation of genes and the turning off of others. Some are on and some are off during certain biological processes. According to Sciencing.com, across the animal kingdom, humans on average share about 50% of identical genetic information with land animals. Species of bugs like fruit flies and even bananas both have about 60% identical DNA to that of humans. Farm animals like cows can share up to 80% of the same genetic information. Our closest relative, the chimpanzee, which we emerged from the dry savannas of East Africa, BBC Par 6, contains 96% of the same genetic composition. Comparatively, any two humans have a genetic variability of 0.1%, containing 99.9% of the same exact genetic information. However, it isn't this difference in how similar the genetic information is that scientists use to separate species. According to the University of Rochester, many scientists today use the fundamentals of reproduction to classify one species from another. Genes are passed down by parents to offspring via fertilization chromosome reproduction. Everyone in the world has inherited their genes from their parents, half from their mother and half from their father. To be considered an individual species, the species must be able to produce offsprings with an individual from the same species and no others. In lighter terms, to be considered an alligator, you would need to be able to reproduce with only other alligators. Although exceptions in this rule exist, they have flaws. A common example would be a mule. Born from a horse and a donkey, a mule seems to break the idea that an individual species must only be able to reproduce with itself. Where this claim fails to be true is the fact that the mule offspring is completely infertile and cannot reproduce. Although its parents were from different species, the offspring cannot reproduce and have its own offspring. Because of these reproduction rule, to be human biologically means you must be able to reproduce with only another human. Despite humans being nearly genetically identical to chimpanzees, it is the fact that we can't reproduce with them that separates humans from chimps. In a basic biological sense, for someone to be human, they must have the capability of producing offspring with an individual of an opposing sex. However, what if we narrow this criteria down? Is it possible to create two more subsections with elements that all humans contain? Ability to change. Are humans' fates determined by their genes and simply nothing they can do about it? Or do we decide our own fate and sail our own voyage in life? For one to be human means they can determine their own fate and sail their own unique voyage in life. This brings us to another principle that humans encompass. The ability to change lifestyle is another component of what every human has. Scientists encompassed this idea when they named the human species Homo sapien. The consensus definition of the term Homo sapien is seen by scientists at top institutions as the wise human who came to be through dramatic change. During early human existence, this idea of change was crucial to our advancement as a species. Early on in our existence, humans relied on themselves for survival. However, 52 million years ago, we changed. We became a social animal, building complex communities that became kingdoms. We learned to domesticate plants and other animals for food, and were able to settle in one place. BBC Par 7. This drastic change from an individual to communal lifestyle is what led humans to dominate the modern world. Similar to the past, humans today continue to make radical changes in lifestyles and philosophies. Take psychedelic experiences, for example. There are countless instances of humans taking psychedelics and their lives completely changing. Users of psychedelics describe their experiences as mind-revealing. Cases exist where humans who were originally prone to smoking completely quit and no longer had any desire to smoke. Psychedelics also utilize several neurosynaptic pathways and affect them in varying ways. In the experience, meaning is revealed to the user, and the gravity of their life is felt. The results of these psychedelics show how greatly humans can change their lifestyles. Research suggests that addicts have the ability to rewire their neurocircuitry and find sobriety through the prescribed use of psychedelics, radically changing their lived experience. In unison, humans have the ability to learn from their past failures and change things about themselves. One great example of this is Allegory of the Cave. In the Allegory of the Cave, a man is chained to a platform and cannot move, and is forced all his life to watch shadows of images on the wall of the cave that are cast by the fire behind him. Then, Socrates inquires more deeply, questioning what would happen if the man were then unchained, and then moved outside the cave and bears witness to the stars, the moon, the sun, and the beauty of the outside world. The subject under question, Glaucon, answers that the man would first cry but learn to accept and appreciate the beauty he sees in the real world. The man that was once chained then goes back to the cave to try and change the others for the better. The good that creates the change naturally inflicts itself upon others. It leads to the old argument that St. Thomas Aquinas answered, "Why did God create humans in the first place? It is because good naturally acts and wills itself upon others. In reality, humans try to change others naturally. Where mind and body come together in perfect unity, a whole new ability emerges, a quality that is neither fueling nor reason, but something deeper and more complete. As these incredible instances of change bleed over into the realm of perception, it is clear that philosophy is ever present in its realm of existence. Perception is like the glasses through which we see things. It is changed by active thought, but can vary by chance effects and instances. Philosophers have long considered that actions or events might be individuated by their effects, and of course, these effects are in the future of the action or event. In individuation, the collective unconscious is brought into the conscious via certain varying instances. In this case, it would be through the effects of the action, but most importantly, not movements that are action-like. Movements that are action-like do not always count as an action. An action is a direct order and decision that is created by a will that manifests in the physical world around the conscious. Thus, through the effects of action, the conscious can change its perception, but the effects can also be determined by chance. We know, though, that the conscious is the collection of previous thoughts and, in turn, memory of actions. When a new scenario is faced and previous thought cannot be drawn upon, it is the unconscious that faces the outside world, and the unconscious must make the decision. How do we know whether that is a good decision or not? By the effects, of course. What part of the person evaluates the effects? The conscious. The effects of unconscious decisions are what create the perception in the conscious. The conscious creates a perception of reality via the thoughts and experiences it deals with. An action-like sequence of movements by itself does not necessarily count as an action. There are other conditions that must be met for movements to be considered actions. Unconscious decisions are not conscious decisions, but it is the conscious that can only create an action. The unconscious can make a movement but not an action because it is not fully aware nor conscious of the order that it is giving. But when the conscious gives an order or makes a decision, it is an action. Decisions made by the unconscious are considered movements in this case. Some movements that are created by the unconscious can be perceived as actions like what I quoted earlier. Through our perceptions, we determine conscious and unconscious movements and filter them as actions. Just think about when you see someone make a split-second decision, no thought put into the decision. That would be an unconscious movement. The answer to the question of what it means to be human has no clear-cut definitive answer. There are many aspects and elements that humans have that separate us from other species. In the most basic scientific approach, humans simply carry specific genetic material that allows them to reproduce with only other humans. In a deeper sense, however, humans have the ability to change their lifestyle from their past failures or experiences. Over time, humans will inevitably change. We used to be an individual species, and now have the most complex social system our world has ever seen. Psychedelic drugs can completely alter the lifestyle of people, changing lifelong alcoholics, drug users, and smokers to a life of abstinence. In unison, the ability of humans to learn from our failures is another trait that separates us from other species. We actively take steps as a society to learn from our past mistakes and prevent ourselves from repeating mistakes. Through our mistakes and successes, we form our perception of the world and alter the world through which we see the world. Our answer to what it means to be human lies in the intricate interplay between genetic composition, the innate ability to change, and the philosophical realm of perception.